car is not too loud, so I'm going to try to speak loudly. All of this is public stuff on Twitter, so I don't feel any problem, just continuing to talk about this. I've been having quite a Twitter discussion to bring out various points about the issue, which I've made videos about before here, about the question of secular education in certain Jewish parochial schools, yeshivos, how they differ. I've made videos about how the various schools have different approaches to secular education and so forth. And I don't want to get into everything, exactly what's here on this whole Twitter discussion here, but there are certain things I would like to discuss here. It is a discussion about the state of secular education in certain Jewish parochial schools, mostly those of what people might say the more cloistered Hasidic communities, although they really aren't as cloistered as people would imagine. But the ones that perhaps have that have that as part of, certainly the ones where, let's say, everyone is expected to speak in Yiddish, things like that. Even though the fact of the matter is that there are different schools that have different approaches. I want to kind of see where I really first spoke up about this. Now, my view on this subject is as follows. Basically, I believe in religious freedom. I am not against parents. I personally, I support the idea of getting a good education, of being educated, knowing how to speak, math, history, science. Even if there are things you disagree with, to be educated about them, to be knowledgeable about them, and to know how to conduct yourself in the world, know how to speak, know how to write, know how to read. I am totally fine with that, but I do know that there are people who have sincere religious beliefs that are different. I'll tell a story. These are two stories that I heard from a very extreme individual, a tremendous Talmud Chacham, someone who I have tremendous respect for, but I recognize him to be an extreme person. But on the other hand, he's not as extreme as other people. There are people who are more extreme than he is. He was a Rosh Yeshiva in Antwerp. He grew up in Williamsburg. I'm not going to mention his name because there is some controversy about him. But the stories are not about him. These are just stories I heard from him. But even though I believe the controversy is unfounded, but the fact of the matter is he's paying for something that I believe that he didn't do. Put that lightly. All of this being said, he told me the following story. He said that his father was a Talmud of a Satmarov in Satu Mare. He learned in yeshiva there in Satmar. And the Satmarov, he said, had a policy that he did not give smicha. When he was younger, he would give smicha, and at a certain point, he decided that he no longer wanted to give smicha. He no longer wanted to ordain rabbis. He said there are plenty of other people who could do that, and that's not something he's going to personally do. Doesn't mean that his yeshiva won't do it. It means that the smicha won't be from him personally. He's not going to sign the document. If someone else wants to give the test and sign, perhaps from his from his institutions. That's a different story. But he did not want to personally be testing and signing the smicha. So there was a bacher who was a tremendous scholar, tremendous Talmud Chacham, and very pious, and he asked the Rebbe if he could have a chavrusa with him, if he could learn with him one-on-one. For the people who don't know, it's typical in the yeshiva environment that you study together with a study partner one-on-one in order basically to be able to bounce ideas off people. You have kind of the Socratic dialogue, which helps you to learn better, to understand the material that you're studying. And so forth, and other things like this. And generally, you're going to have a chavrusa with someone who's your peer, but sometimes you might have a chavrusa, you might have a study partnership with someone who is your superior, or obviously if you could have with your superior, they're going to have with someone who is subordinate to them. And there is such a thing to have study partners, almost as a charitable thing, with people who need extra help and things like that to understand the material. But here there was a young man who was himself a tremendous scholar despite his young years, who had the merit of sitting and studying together with none other than the Saparov himself. And who was his Rosh Hashiva, who was the dean of the academy where he was studying, the seminary where he's studying. At a certain point, I'm going to have to put back on the GPS. Now, this young man, generally, what do we study in most yeshivas when you're studying to be ordained as a rabbi? A very popular thing to study. You could technically be ordained on any material, but generally, the material that is generally understood to demonstrate someone's proficiency in Torah study to the point where they can be an ordained rabbi, at least to the, not basic level, but to what I would say is the intermediate level that most, synagogue rabbis would be holding, is he would study the laws of kosher, particularly what to do if something goes wrong. In kosher laws, for example, we don't mix meat and milk. We're not allowed to cook meat in milk. And there are other aspects of that law which are complicated. And so the question would be, well, what if you're cooking a big meat stew and accidentally a drop of milk falls in? Questions like this, law it's nullified if it's 1 part to 16. See, there you have mathematics there in the study, in what we're studying. So to say that yeshivas don't teach mathematics, just as a side point, which is really the point what we're talking about here, but essentially, that's what we're talking about here. But these are the laws that you would study if you're going to become a rabbi, basically. And then you're going to be tested on those laws, and when you pass the test and the person knows you and knows that you are a pious individual who's deserving to be ordained as a rabbi, in addition to being a scholar to the point where you can study this material and pass tests on it and be able to render decisions when people they'll ask you questions. And then, you know, you can be ordained as a rabbi and most likely be able to have a position in a community or something as a community rabbi. At least that's how it's generally done in the Orthodox world. There's not much really rabbinical training that is required to be ordained. There are, you know, rabbinical training courses. I took a rabbinical training course in addition to my ordination. But the fact of the matter is a lot of people are ordained who don't plan to be professional rabbis. They might be doctors or lawyers, but they just want to have the study and perhaps have the title. They might never use the title. Things like that. So, as I was saying, the Satmar Rebbe did not, at a certain point, he decided he was no longer going to ordain rabbis. He said there are plenty of other people who can do that, and he's not going to take that responsibility. I'm just about to where I gotta turn, so I'm gonna have to put on my GPS again. So, and this is kind of, I don't really need the Twitter really to discuss what I'm going to discuss today, or at least in this video. I wasn't planning on this is just what came out. So, this young man decided he was essentially going to trick the Satmar Rebbe. What do I mean? So, basically what he decided to do is, what is he going to study with the Rebbe is the portions of the Code of Jewish Law with all of their source material and everything that are required to be ordained as a rabbi. And then, you know, there are other source materials for a higher level, for him to be a rabbinical judge. But so basically, this young man was already ordained by many great rabbis in Hungary, and he took this opportunity to study this material over again, which he had studied before. It wasn't new to him, it was a review. To study this material with the Satmar Rav, and then he could say to the Rebbe, now I would like the Rebbe to ordain me, because the Rebbe knows that I know the material. So Satmar Rebbe was kind of upset at him of how he essentially bested him, that he knew that he didn't want to ordain rabbis, that this young man was aware of that, and yet he essentially tricked him, because it would be unjust for him to refuse, because in a certain sense, because he knew the material. However, on the other hand, he had his reasons. It wasn't for him. You know, quite often rules are made not because of the individual who you don't need to make rules for, but for the other people. If you change the rules for one, then it's unjust to change rules for everybody, right? They say, you know, if you want to bring that in, right, you got to make sure you got to have enough for everybody, that type of thing. Although there's a time and a place for everything. This being said, I don't know why this is not working. So the young man said, so the Rebbe said, so I cannot ordain you because I have a policy now, and I don't want to go against my policy. So then the young man said, but I'm a Rebbe She'enikal, I have yichus. I come from a distinguished family. He said, that's exactly the reason I don't want to ordain you. Because, yes, you are worthy to be ordained, and I would love to ordain you. But if another young comes along and says, look, I'm such and such Einikal, I'm the great-grandson of this rabbi or that rabbi, and I refuse, and then they're going to be upset at me, but maybe he's not worthy to be ordained. And so the fact that you have some kind of come from a rabbinical dynasty is exactly exactly the reason why I don't want to ordain you. Again, not because of you, but because of others who might abuse their lineage. So then the young man said, but I don't know. Oh my goodness, I don't want to go to Chester. Alright, I'm going to have to turn this off because I'm almost to my exit. The young man said to the Rebbe, but Rebbe, I don't know the ABCs. I don't know the secular alphabet. I don't know the Latin alphabet, essentially. I can't read Hungarian or Romanian or German or any language other than languages that are written in Hebrew letters like Yiddish, Hebrew, Aramaic. As soon as the Rebbe heard that, he didn't hesitate. He started immediately to write the ordination, because he said it's clear that this generation, as we're getting further and further away from holiness, we will need rabbis who are very holy men like this, who are unique in their generation. It sounds strange to me to hear this. I personally am not really comfortable with this. But it's true that there are people who have religious views that are different than mine. And another story the same rabbi told me was about a rabbi who one day he was walking along. I don't remember who he was talking about. I think he was walking along with Rav Shaul Brach, the Kasher Rav. Not sure, but I don't remember who the other rabbi was, an older rabbi. And and I believe it was the Kasher Rav, though I could be mistaken, heard this older rabbi say, "Oh, Baruch Hashem, thank God, thank God." He said, what's so special? He said, I finally come to the point in my life where I can look at an app. I mean, I look at a sign written in Hungarian or Romanian or German or whatever language it was, and I can no longer read it. At a certain point in my life, I was a rabbi in a community, and the Neolin, the ones who wanted to reformists in Hungary, which the Hungarian reformists were what they called Biolog, were what we would call modern Orthodox. We wouldn't even consider them conservative. But that being said, these were... Alright, I'm going to have to turn this off. But in order to maintain my position as a rabbi in the community, and because if I would lose my position, then they would hire a Neolog rabbi, I had to learn the Gentile language, which I did in order to be a rabbi in the community. But now, thank God, I've finally forgotten the language, and my brain has been cleansed. Again, not my style. I pride myself in speaking English well, trying to do my best reading and writing in English. But I have to recognize that there is religion, albeit, a small minority, who do believe this, that it's better not to have any secular education at all. There are people who believe that as a matter of religion. And it's a sincere religious belief. And so I do want to protect that minority that has this belief. I'm going to have to get going because my phone can't handle all this memory going on. So God bless. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about freedom of religion. That yes, indeed, it's not my approach to Judaism, but I do want to protect those who have a different approach to Judaism than I have. And not have the government force one path or the other. So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. I've got to figure out where I'm going.
In 2 miles, use the left 2 lanes to take exit 17, US 202 south, US 206 south toward US 22 west, Somerville.
That's where I was supposed to turn. Is there anywhere to get back on here? Alright, turn this off.
In 1,000 feet, at the traffic circle, take the 3rd exit and stay on US 206 south. Slight right toward 1st Avenue, then turn left onto 1st Avenue. Take the next left onto 1st Avenue, then turn left onto US 202 north.